Greetings again, it's HB Dlamini, Public Law, N6. Today we'll be doing the classification of law and the different courts. This is going to be part 1, but I'll explain that later. The reference material will be Public Law textbook by A. Kruger, and I'm also using South African Constitution 108 of 1996. The resource required for you, it's only the textbook. Please make sure it's next to you so that we can refer to it now and again. Thank you. So as we're doing classifications, in fact, there's no perfect or ideal classification of law because the Romans, who are intellectuals in law, as well as the authors of law, differ now and again when it comes to some other laws as to where some divisions of law fit in law, right? So for today, let's take our books and open page 24. That diagram, it's similar to that one on page 3, which we discussed in when we were doing module 1, you remember? Right, it's one and the same, okay? So on top, it's still the same. It's the law, international law and national law, you'll see it. But I just want to quickly rush here because this module is a bit longer than the other modules. Let's start with the national law. We said it's divided into material law. So under material law or substantive law, we've got public law. You remember we said public law, it's a vertical relationship between the state as well and a legal subject. In other words, you'll remember the scenario I gave you in module 1 when I gave you the examples where you assaulted your ex-bully. So in that particular event, it's going to be, when we're in court, it's going to be the state versus yourself, right? For example, state versus SIPO. Okay, still under material law, we've got private law. We said private law, it's a horizontal relationship between the legal subjects. In other words, both legal subjects are on equal basis. So it's going to be yourself versus your bully because you injured the bully. So now the bully is claiming you. Okay. Right. So we also have adjective law. Adjective law is also classified on its own. It's more about the procedure, this one. It's classified as law of criminal procedure, law of civil procedure, law of evidence, as well as legal interpretation of law or interpretation of statutes or juridical interpretation. If you don't want to say legal interpretation, you can say interpretation of statutes. If you don't want to say interpretation of statutes, you say juridical interpretation because it's the same. It's one and the same, right? So the public law division now. Under public law, we've got administrative law, which controls administration of the state in general, right? In other words, it determines the way in which the state exercises its executive powers through the state bodies such as ministers, state departments, and numerous boards. For example, take the licensing board. A certain procedure must be followed there in terms of the administrative law. We'll say more about this administrative law in module 8. Let's just leave it, leave it for now, excuse me. Right? Let's go to criminal law. Criminal law determines the following. 1, it's the acts of subjects or people which will be deemed as criminal offenses. Before you say someone has committed an offense and all that, you must know this, right? You must also know the punishment which should be imposed upon conviction, right? By conviction, we mean there's a stage of the case when it's tried where it must be decided whether you are guilty or not guilty. Sometimes it's a guilty verdict or a not guilty verdict, right? A criminal law offense is an unlawful act against the law that you all know, right? So for any criminal offense committed, the state must prosecute and punish the offender, right? Procedural law. Under procedural law, what is meant by the procedural law? Procedural law is just the method or the manner to be followed in court of law, in the court of law. So it applies in both public law and private law, right? So what happens here with the procedural law is that when you commit an offense, the procedure which will be followed in court will be determined by the complainant, right? The relationship between the court and the complainant is the one which will be indicated here, right? So it's divided into criminal procedure, civil procedure, and the law of evidence. I must say the law of evidence, most people don't understand how it works, but I'll just say one or two about it. When we talk of the law of evidence, we're talking about the proof. So it's in both private and public laws, right? We're talking about the proof. Let's go back to the example of the assault. You assaulted the bully and somebody alerted the police who arrested you, right? The police came to you and arrested you. The very same person who alerted the policeman can in turn be a witness, right? In other words, the evidence now given by the complainant, that is the bully, will be assisted by the evidence given by the person who alerted the police, because the police was a bit far away. He could not see what you were doing. Okay, right, let's move to private law. Private law divisions are as follows. It's law of persons. We did this in module 1. It's law of persons, family law, and law of patrimony. As usual, we said law of patrimony is divided into 4. It's the property law, law of succession, law of obligations, that is the commitment, as well as the law of intellectual property. We did that. Please refer to module 1 slides and page 26 in your book. There's also the law of personality, also the law of indigenous law under private law. Okay, then let's move to the McIntyre, which is also a private law. It's McIntyre or commercial law. It deals with commerce or trade and industry. It's more about the contracts. Classification of courts. I think this is the end of part 1. Then we'll go to the classification of courts. It's going to be part 2.